Hi, my name is Annie. Welcome to my channel. Today we will be making this super cute apple blossom granny square. This granny square is part of my state flower granny square project, and apple blossom is the state flower of both Arkansas and Michigan. A couple of things before we get started. First of all, this is an intermediate level tutorial. So while I will be showing you how to make the square, I will not go into a lot of detail for each individual stitch, for example. So it is helpful if you know basic crochet stitches, you've maybe made granny squares in the past, but if you're very new to crochet, I would recommend you start with one of my beginner-friendly tutorials before moving on to this one. A second thing to mention is that this design is my original design. So I do ask that whenever you use the squares that you make with this tutorial, you give me credit for the design. I will include super easy ways to give me credit for the design in the description of this video, so you can just follow those instructions there. To make this granny square, you will need 4 different colors of yarn if you want to make the square in 4 different colors like I've done here. I'm going to be using today this darker brown instead of the beige to make the border. And the yarn that I'm using is a DK weight 100% cotton yarn. Then you will also need a crochet hook, a yarn needle for weaving in your ends, and a pair of scissors. We are going to start our granny square from the middle. So go ahead and grab your first color that you want to use for the center. And for the center, we are going to need 10 single crochet stitches. I am going to start by making a slip knot. And then I chain 4 stitches. And then I bring this together into a ring by slip stitching into this very first stitch here. If you prefer starting your granny squares with a magic ring, you can also do that. And now I need to work 10 single crochets around this ring. It's very hard to see that it is a ring, but it is. So I'm going to be working those single crochets into the middle of this ring. And I start by chaining 1. And I actually count this chain 1 as my first single crochet. So then I will just go insert my hook in the very middle of this circle, bring that yarn through, yarn over, and pull through 2 to create that single crochet stitch. I'll show you another one. So insert in the middle, bring the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now I start to see the middle part of the ring a lot better after those first couple of stitches. So far I have to chain 1, which I count as a single crochet, and I have 2 actual single crochets. So I'm going to need 7 more single crochets around this ring to have 10 in total. So go ahead and work around yours and meet me back here. I have worked my 10 single crochets. If you lost count of the single crochets, and I know they can be really hard to count here, I like to count them on the outside just to make sure that I have 10 on the outside, because that's what I need for my next round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, that's 5. 6, 7, 8, and 9. And now when I close this round, I will have a 10th stitch here on the outside. And for me, I know different people do this differently. I like to go into this stitch here to close my round. And now for the next round, I will count both this one and this one here, where it's a slip stitched, as one of those 10 stitches. I know some people don't count that initial chain 1 as a single crochet, and that's totally fine if you don't do that, but do make sure that you have, however you count your stitches, that you have now 10 stitches on the outside, because that's important for our next round. So there we go, it's fast enough, that round. Next we will work the petals of the apple blossom, and these petals are 3D, so the flower really stands out from the square. And then the edges of the petals are going to be kind of cupping a little bit like that, like in a real apple flower. So go ahead and grab your second color, so the color that you want to use for the petals of the flower. I am using this pink. And I like to attach my yarn with a slip knot. If you prefer using a different way for attaching your yarn, feel free to use your way. And then we'll go ahead and attach the yarn into one of these stitches here, or this outside part of the previous round stitch. And now, remember, on the previous round, we made sure that we have 10 of these all around the circle or the center part of the flower. So just go into one of those and attach your yarn. I like to pull this yarn tight here to make sure that it's secure. All right, and now we'll be working 5 petals in total for the flower, and each one of these petals consists of chain stitches on either side, and then in the middle we have a double treble crochet stitches, 3 of them, that we kind of finish all at once, or we bring them together into this cluster. Don't worry if that made no sense. I hope it makes more sense when I show it to you. So I'm gonna start by chaining 4. This is the outside of the petal. There we go, we chained 4. And now I am going to be working those double treble crochets into this next stitch. But what I do is I don't finish the stitches quite yet. So I kind of leave them. I call it partial double treble crochet, but that sounds absolutely awful. I'm not sure if there is an actual term for this, what I'm going to do, but I hope it makes sense to you once I show it to you. So I go yarn over 3 times, okay, because I'm making double treble crochets. Then I insert my hook into this next stitch. So this is where I attach my yarn. I go into the next stitch here. I bring that yarn through. And then I go yarn over. I pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. yarn over, pull through 2, and I stop. Now, if I was making an actual double treble crochet, I would go yarn over one more time and pull through these 2 remaining loops on my hook. But I want to leave these stitches kind of unfinished for now. So I'm just gonna leave those 2 loops on my hook, and I'll make another one. Yarn over 3 times. I insert now in the same stitch where I had the previous partial double treble crochet. I bring the yarn through. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2, and I stop. And now I have 3 loops on my hook. And I'll make 1 more of these partial double treble crochet stitches. Yarn over 3 times. I insert still in the same stitch where I have these other 2 partial double treble crochets. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. Now I have 3 of those stitches there, and I have this initial chain 4 and 4 loops on my hook. And at this point, I kind of finish all these partial double treble crochets at once by going yarn over and pulling through all of them, all 4 loops. Then I chain 4 again. And now I slip stitch, not in the same stitch where I made those double treble crochet cluster. I go in the next stitch. And I slip stitch there. And I chain 4. And now this is the start of my next petal. So I will work all 5 petals exactly the same way I work this first one. So I chain 4 here. In the next stitch, I work that cluster of double treble crochets. I chain 4 and I slip stitch into the next stitch there. And that's how I work all around the center. If you need to see how we made the petal, feel free to rewind and go back here and make the rest of these petals exactly the same way we made the first one. And meet me back here once you have 5. I have worked all my petals, and this here is my last chain of 4. And now I will be slip stitching this into the very first stitch where we started that first chain 4. So I'll go into that same stitch to close this round. There we go. We've got all our petals. And next we're going to start working on the background. I'm going to be making these leaves in the green color. But before we get started, we are going to need something back here behind these petals to work that next round. And now we're going to be working the next round in the same color. In my case, it's the pink. But it's not going to be visible in the final square. So the next round is actually here underneath this following round of stitches. But we can't really see it anywhere on the outside. But this round that we're going to be creating next is going to help us to create the rest of the square. So right now I'm here where I have slip stitched to close that round. And I'm gonna be chaining 3 stitches. Here you might need to pull these petals down just to see what you're doing, because we're gonna be working behind our work now. So chain 3. And now I will be slip stitching this between these 2 petals here. So this is where this chain starts, and I go here between these 2 petals. And the way I like to do this is I pick 1 stitch from this side and another stitch from that side. I'll show you. So I go through 1 loop here, and then another loop on the other side, and I slip stitch there. And I pull that tight. Then I will chain 3 again. This is where it starts. And now I will go between these 2 petals. And again, I will pick up one loop from this side and another loop from that side. So 1 from here and 1 from there. And the reason I like to pick up 1 stitch from each side is that I feel that if I only pick up 1, it starts pulling the petals in a weird way. So I feel like this way is just more secure and looks better from this side. There we go. So I've created 2 of these loops here behind my first 2 petals, and I'll just go around the entire flower working a loop of 3 chain stitches behind each one of these petals. So go ahead and work 3 more loops behind the petals. If you need to see how we made the loops, feel free to go back here and see how we made this one and make the rest of the loops the same way. I have worked all those chains of 3, and I'm just going to show you where I like to slip stitch this last one. So this is my last chain of 3, and this is where my first one starts. So same thing as before, I like to pick up 1 stitch here from either side to secure that chain right there. And then to make this round even more secure, I like to slip stitch 1 more time here to the beginning of this first loop. So slip stitch there. I chain 1, and then I can cut my yarn. And fast enough. Next, we are going to start working with our background color. I'm going to be using this green to create kind of these leaves around the flower. And for this next round, we are going to be working into these chains that we just created in the previous round. And we'll be working 4 half double crochet stitches into each one of those loops. And that's all we do for this next round. So I will be attaching my yarn with a slip knot again. Then I will attach my yarn into one of these loops right in the beginning of the loop. Not into an individual stitch, okay, but just into this loop. So I insert in that space and bring that yarn through. I am, by the way, using my weaving as you go method. So that's why you see me holding those yarn ends there. I'm not gonna explain it here in detail, but I will link to a separate tutorial in the description of this video if you want to check it out. Okay, there's my yarn. I just attached it there, right at the start of this loop. And I will chain 2. And this chain 2 here is going to count as my first half double crochet. So now I will work 3 more half double crochets into this loop. So not into a stitch, but I just go through that loop and work my 3 half double crochets there. So yarn over, insert in the space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through 3 loops. 1 more, yarn over, insert in the space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through 3 loops. So now I have 4 stitches here. This initial chain 2 counting as my first half double crochet. Might want to pull them if they are not exactly spaced out equally. So just pull the stitches a little bit. And then I will go into the next loop here. So yarn over, I go straight into the next loop. Bring the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through 3. Yarn over, insert the hook, bring the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through 3. 2 half double crochets there. So I need 2 more for this loop here. There we go. 4 half double crochets. And that's how I work all around my apple flower. So feel free to go ahead and work those 4 half double crochets into each one of these loops and meet me back here once you're done. I have worked all those half double crochets here, and now I will just join this round. And here I like to slip stitch into that stitch. So the second from the bottom. Here we go. And now this next round is going to be very interesting because we have a 5 petal flower here on a square that has 4 sides. So we are going to need some math to make this work. First of all, to make this 5 petal flower work for this 4-sided square. And also to work so that the flower is sort of sitting right straight in the middle. So if you look here, this petal is in the middle of this side here. So that the flower really neatly sits straight in the middle. And I'm going to be going very slow and explaining this entire round, walking you through this entire next round, because I know that it can get very, very confusing. So I'm here, I have just slip stitched here to close that round. And now let's say that this petal here is the petal that I want to be in the middle of this side here. So we're going to be working first this corner and this side so that this petal sits right in the middle. And to do that, we will need to start that corner at a certain stitch here. And I'm gonna go ahead and start slip stitching my way to the right stitch. So I close that round and now I will just slip stitch. I will slip stitch all the way to the second stitch from counting from this spot here. So if we look here, this is the spot. This stitch counts as a stitch on that side, and this one counts as the first stitch on this side. So I'm going to be slip stitching to the second stitch here. So this is the first one, and this is the second one. So I need one more slip stitch to get there. And now I do want to double check my stitches here to make sure that I'm starting at the right spot. So again, the first stitch that counts on this side is this one here. This one counts as a stitch for the other side. So this is the first one. This is where I just slip stitched. And then I still have 1 and 2 stitches on this side. And then this side here counts as a stitch for the next loop here. So I am in the right stitch and I still have 4 stitches on that loop. That's important, okay? It's important that we have 4 stitches for each one of these loops to make this next round work. So I'm in the second stitch here, counting from here, and I will chain 2. And this chain 2 counts as a half double crochet. And I'm going to be working half double crochet clusters for this next round. So I chain 2, and then I will go ahead and work 2 more half double crochets into the same stitch. So into the very same stitch where we just slip stitched. 2 more half double crochets. Okay, there's my first cluster of half double crochets. After that, I will chain 2 because this will be my corner. And then I will skip the next stitch here, and I will work 3 more half double crochets in the next one. So skip this one and into that one. 3 half double crochets. There we go, and that is my first corner. And next I will skip 2 stitches here, 1 and 2, and I will work another cluster of half double crochets into the next one. There we go. And after that, I will chain 2. This is my second corner. I will skip 1 stitch here, and I will work another cluster of half double crochets in the next one. So skip this one and go into the next one. And 3 half double crochets in there. My yarn split there a little bit. I'll work that last one again. There we go. Let's see what I've got so far. So I have 2 corners so far, And as we can see, this petal here is already in the middle of these of this side, so in between these two corners. So this is how I go all around the square. So basically I'm just creating these corner clusters in this round because the square is still so small. So I'm not adding any clusters on the sides. So here's my corner, and for the side, the only thing I do is I skip the next 2 stitches, and then I work another cluster of half double crochets into the next one. There we go. And then I chain 2 for the corner. Again, I skip 1 stitch here in the middle of the corner, and I work another cluster of half double crochets into the next one. There we go. There's my third corner. And then for the side, I skip 2 stitches, 1 and 2. I go yarn over and I work another cluster of half double crochets into the next one, the third stitch. So for the side, I just skip 2 stitches there. Then I chain 2 for the corner. I skip the next stitch and I work 3 half double crochets into that next stitch. There we go. There is my last corner. And now if I counted all these stitches correctly, I should have 1 and 2 stitches here before this initial chain 2 here. So now what I will do, I will just close this round with a slip stitch. Again, here I like to go to the second stitch from the bottom, and I slip stitch. And now I work my way to the next corner because I like to start my rounds in the corner. So it's a slip stitch all the way there. There we go. Okay, so now for the next round, I'm going to be adding one more round. We just made this round here, and I'm going to be adding one more round in this green color. And for the next round, I will just work granny stitches all around. So these are clusters of double crochet stitches that I'll be creating on this round. I'll show you a couple. If you've made granny squares before, this is going to be very familiar to you. So I'm here in this corner. I will chain 2, which counts as my first double crochet. I know some people like to chain 3 here, so if that's what you prefer, you do you. But I chain 2, and then I work 2 more double crochets for this cluster. There we go. And then for the corner, I will chain 2 again. And I work 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. There we go. That's my first corner for this round. And then for the side, I will go into the space between these two clusters of the previous round. And I will work another cluster of double crochets in there. So there it is. So that's how you work all around the square. So work 2 clusters of double crochets in the corners, separated by a chain 2, and then in the corner, in the side, in that space, in the middle of the side, a cluster of 3 double crochets. So work all around and meet me back here. I have worked all my double crochets around the square, so now I will just go ahead and close this round. Here I like to go into this stitch, just the 3rd stitch, counting from the bottom. I know different people count this or close their rounds differently, start and close their rounds differently. This is the way I do it, but if you want to do it a different way, feel free. One thing I love about crochet is that often there's more than one way of doing things. It's important that you find yours. There we go. All the leaves are done. We are ready to start working with the very last color for our square. So I'm going to be creating kind of this border around the apple blossom and the leaves. And these last 2 rounds are just granny stitches, so exactly the same as the previous round. For this one I use this beige, but for this one I actually want to try this darker brown color, which I think is also going to be really pretty. Again, I attach my yarn with a slip knot, and I like to start in a corner. So I'll just attach my yarn right into this corner. Here we go. So I chain 2, counts as my first double crochet, then 2 more double crochets for this cluster, I chain 2 for the corner, and then a cluster of 3 double crochets in that same corner space. Here we go. That's my first corner for this round. And then I'll just work clusters of double crochet into these spaces on the sides. Just like that. So feel free to work around your square, working double crochets, 3 double crochets into each one of the spaces. On the sides and in the corners you do 2 clusters of double crochet separated by a chain 2. And meet me back here once you're done with this round. I'm ready to close this round. So work that last cluster of double crochets there, and I will just slip stitch here to close the round. And then I will slip stitch my way to the next corner, because that's where I like to start my new round. There we go. So in the corner, I'll chain 2, which counts as a double crochet, and then 2 more double crochets. I chain 2 for the corner, and then I work 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. And then I just keep working all around the square, so clusters of double crochets on the sides, and in the corners 2 clusters of double crochets separated by a chain 2. I have just finished the last round of my granny square, so I will just go ahead and close this round with the slip stitch. And I chain 1, and then I can cut my yarn. Fast enough. And now here is my apple blossom granny square for Arkansas and Michigan. I really love this darker brown background color, although I also do really love this beige one, so I think they both turned out really pretty. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Please subscribe to my channel, comment and like this tutorial if you like the video. And please, if you're posting pictures of your granny square on Instagram, be sure to tag my account. I would love to see your squares. And as mentioned in the beginning, please give me credit for the design whenever you use your granny square. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.